All right, guys, let's rally up. That's right, we're waiting on you guys. I guess I took that seriously. Hey guys, welcome to Ember Denver. This is our 2016 kickoff. Super beginner friendly. We're going to be talking about beginner topics all gosh darn night. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Gigabit and Zero. Those of you who've been to this meetup before know that Gigabit and Zero have both been tireless sponsors of this meetup. Gigabit, in particular, has been with us 7 months, 8 months. They provided the fantastic pizza that you were having this night. And we have a representative from Gigabit tonight who'd like to tell you a little bit about the company.
Right now?
Yeah!
Okay.
Yeah!
Yeah, I'm with Gigabit. Great company. I'd love to tell you guys more. We're hiring right now for a senior, mid-senior level JavaScript web application developer. So if you guys are in the market, know anybody, feel free to get my information, and I'd be happy to tell you more about it.
Cool. Ashley?
Ashley.
Ashley, rock on. And Ciro, who provided your beverages this evening.
And the room, some of them.
And the room, and this fine building that you're in. And lots and lots of love over the years. We have Dave, Dave, and Brett here as representatives from Ciro. Would you guys like to, Brett, you want to say something about Ciro?
Sure. We're Ciro.
I keep trying to make you guys money, and you're always like,
We're sort of a Ember-focused, JavaScript front-end focused, but we do full stack, primarily Rails and Node on the back end, and we do just sort of like consultancy work for a lot of different companies with apps and stuff. We help out with apps, we build prototypes, stuff like that. We're a small team of people focused on developing. So,
you're goddamn right. All right, rock on. So these folks provided this evening for you, so round of applause for them. All right, welcome to the Ember community. Raise your hand if you're brand new to Ember. Yeah, a whole bunch of you. Holy crap. In Denver, your leadership team includes me. I put on this meetup, which basically means that I write a bunch of emails and stuff during the week, and then I talk a lot when I can't find somebody else to do it. But we have a bunch of other people who make this happen behind the scenes. Frankie, who owns Ciro, is usually here. Where is he right now? You didn't tell me.
He is in Colombia.
Like the country, Columbia?
That's the only reason why he's not here.
Fat living, man. Ben Limmer, who also unfortunately couldn't be here, senior engineer for Ibotta, I bought a bench, I bought a basket, like whatever. And they help you. They make the app that helps you make money with the stuff you already buy. It's like I'm sure there's some like I bought a marketing person who's like that's not the first buddy. Brandon, who prepared some of the presentation you'll see later tonight, also usually here. Mr. Barrett right there. Dave Wasmer, who is responsible for making the media streaming happen. If any of you have seen the previous meetups that we've recorded, that's all Dave. David Baker, who's right there, is taking charge of our open source nights, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So this is, we're kind of your go-to folks locally if you got questions. But there's also, we'll talk about the rest of the stuff later, I guess. So if you've never been to this before, raise your hand if you've never been to a meetup, period, before. Anyone? Cool. One person who will admit it. A lot of you are probably a little more virgin you're letting on. So the way that we do this is a little bit different than some other meetups. And the socializing stuff we just did, generally speaking, we'll have a beginner's talk pretty much every time. We'll have a topic talk. Topic talk might be something like how to set up an Ember adapter, narrow focus, that sort of thing. We'll have a headline talk, maybe a bigger topic. So, for example, in November, we had Mike Pack here talking about how you set up a distributed application for, like, Africa, for example. And that talk is going to be at EmberConf this year. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the talk got accepted. So he'll be doing that for like 1,000 people in March, but you guys saw it first. And then we just hang out and party until all the beer's gone. One of the reasons I'm bringing this up is these three things are kind of up for grabs. If you feel like you would like to do one of those things, like these two in particular don't require a ton of experience. Tom Luskin, were you? You did the topic talk, and you've been doing Ember Dev for how long? When you did that talk? So like not very long at all. So you don't need a ton of expertise if you want to dive in. This is a community framework, very community focused. And like all of my students who are here know, raise your hand for one of my students. Yeah, a couple of you. You know that I've told you one of the best ways to learn these kinds of things is to teach it. If you really want to learn about serializers, do a talk on serializers. But I've never once had a meetup where it's like, sorry man, I've been booked for months. I have a headliner for next month. I got 2 open slots. So if you'd like to take one of those on, hit me up afterward. Okay, open source night. A couple things to point out about this. We started doing this in this form probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago. So this is hosted at Digabit. If you've never been to Digabit before, it's in Englewood, but don't get scared. It's like at the light rail station. You got a good arm, you can hit it with a rock from the light rail. That's encouraged. Yes. Don't actually hit Digabit with a rock, please. But open source night is super good for beginners. I know a lot of people from Galvanize, you guys were super early into programming, came to that, and a lot of you got pull requests accepted, like 5 weeks into being a programmer. So like if it's a really good way to learn about the framework, to learn about open source contribution. It's not like this. It doesn't have speakers, super loose format. Think of it more like a night hackathon kind of vibey thing. Yeah.
So you guys are actually working on like real
like for real stuff, yeah.
Okay.
And so we're planning on doing that every month, opposite the main meetup. So the current schedule for this is we do this meetup the day after Denver Script, so last Wednesday of the month, and then in every 2 weeks after that, we'll have one of those. And David, as the guy who's kind of heading that show now, is there anything else you'd like to say about open source nights?
I'd be interested in knowing if you're interested in it. Maybe speak up on Slack or come tell me afterwards. Dave Wassmer is probably going to have a baby. Then he and I have been doing it together, so if no one's interested, I won't come back.
All right. Well, hey, there you go.
Is it a BYOB?
No, it's catered by Digabit.
That too.
Digabit brings everything.
Yeah. And they even bring the whiteboards. Any questions about open source night? Sweet. So outside of Denver Ember, forums, which is discuss.ember.com, I think. Absolutely terrific community. And what I have found there and in the community Slack is like you will talk to Ember Core team members. You have exposure to like some pretty heavy hitters. And like great place to ask a question, great place to look up if a question's been asked before. Used to be a pretty regular hunt for me. I miss it dearly. Ember forums are terrific. Community Slack. If you're a full Slack developer like this guy, Ember does have a very active Slack that all the core team members use. A lot of meetups other than this one use it to coordinate the meetup stuff. Really cool, like minute-by-minute community there. They also have an IRC channel. I don't know if that still gets used. It's been replaced by Slack, but I don't know. They have that as well. EmberConf in March. Who's going to EmberConf? Few of us? You're going to EmberConf? Get out of Dodge, man. Rock on. Portland. This is the most fun conference this side of Dinosaur.js. So some unique things about EmberConf. Last year, and I think this year also, they're single tracking it. Do we know that for sure?
Yeah, there's like some dual track points.
Okay, some dual track points.
It's like 1.5 track.
They I was wondering how long they were going to be able to maintain that. Last year, they single tracked the entire thing. That means
600 people.
Like 600 people in a room for every presentation. And I think it really underscores like community aspect of that. This isn't a thing that is made that we all use. This thing we're all a part of. And holy crap, is it a good time. And then there's the Global Meetup. Global Meetup is like a Hangouts on Air kind of thing where you can be one of a few hundred people who go to a meetup just like this, but it's online distributed and has some pretty world-class speakers. Cool. So for this particular meetup, some goals that I laid out in July when I took it over from Ian. Consistency, broadcasting, nonprofit. Consistency, haven't missed one yet. In fact, we've doubled up on the open source nights. Thanks to Mr. Wassmer, we have broadcasting happening. We're broadcasting right now. You can say hi to all the, I don't know how many people watching this. And the third one is nonprofit status. So I talked to Drew Dahlman about this morning. This is still in the works. As you might imagine, making a nonprofit umbrella organization for all the tech meetups in Denver involves a lot of lawyers and paperwork. So this is taking some time, but that is still very much in the work. Benefits to us are that companies can invest in us, and we can do things like scholarships to EmberConf, and find companies like Digabit that give us dollars to do this sort of stuff and be able to do tax deductions on it. Be a nonprofit. So lots of cool stuff coming there. Other stuff after that, I was really hoping to base this off of the surveys that I never sent out. But anybody, I'll talk about that in a second. But any other stuff people would really like to see happen this year with a Denver Ember meetup? Then I'll speak at once. Gone once. Going twice. All right, well, hit me up afterwards if you think of anything. I will get that survey out. The reason that I didn't get the survey done in time was this little guy happened.
What's his name?
Miles. Both of them are named after Dune characters because I'm that cool. So that's Duncan, Idaho. This is Miles Teg. But that's also the reason that your next talk, which is also done by me, is going to suck. So be forewarned. You're like, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. All right. So I will get a survey out to you guys. Is I do want to, since this is very community focused, I want to make it around what you guys want to see. So growth. Last year, this meetup, a similar topic. It was a beginners focused, like, hey, we're kicking off the year. We had 42 RSVPs. We had 50 RSVPs this year. Like, as you can tell, we don't have 50 people here. That never really happens with meetups. However, I'm going to go ahead and call that like 20% growth. So don't worry. Okay, so some Ember news. Ember and Ember Data 2.3 are out. So cool things about this, you may have noticed when you like install an application under CLI, you'll have Ember Data in Bower and your package.json for NPM. You don't need to do that anymore. As of 2.3, it is NPM only. You also don't need to use the DS namespace anymore. So like when you're making a model, you have to import from DS model and have like DS string and DS data, like all that kind of stuff. Those are super globals now, basically. There is a cross-site scripting security patch for everything above 11, I think. So if you do have one of those apps out in the wild, please download the security patch. The patch is all the way back. The Visit API. This is super cool. Who here is familiar with every fucking meetup I space on the name for this. What's the server rendered Ember? Fastboot. Jesus. So there's a Visit API that you can use in Ember apps now. So Fastboot is the idea that you render an Ember app on the server and deliver all of that down, and it hydrates with all the JavaScript stuff in the background. So you get that instant kind of page load stuff that you would with like a normal HTML, JavaScript-y, no fat app, but you get all the full functionality of a client-side framework as it becomes available. The Visit API will allow you to go somewhere in the application. So you'll essentially be able to boot an Ember application on the server, have it navigate to a particular route, and then send that to you. Holy shit. Like, that has a lot of potential to it.
So it sends it to you pre-rendered, whatever.
Exactly. It sends you the HTML of whatever that would be, and then fills in the JavaScript as it becomes available. Speaking of Fastboot, it's even on my slide. Holy crap. Losing my mind. So, Fastboot is available now, asterisk. So, like, Fastboot has not gone gold, so it's not production stable yet. However, it is currently stable with production Ember. So if you have a production Ember app that you would like to see if Fastboot might help you a little bit, you can try that out now with the production builds. You don't have to use Canary or Beta or anything like that. Coming up soon, Ember Engines. This is the idea of like if you have a huge enterprise app, being able to break it into smaller Ember apps that end up getting stitched together. This is on the way. If you read the last blog post, they do their Ember Core just did their quarterly meetup where they did their planning for the year and all that kind of stuff. Gold all over that thing. Highly recommend reading that one. And then EmberConf is coming up, 29th and 30th. Congrats, Mike Pack, for making it in. And congrats to me and Steve and Ben and a couple other people who submitted talks and got rejected. Yeah! Okay, I'm actually going to do this in reverse order. Who's looking to hire Ember devs right now? Hands? Ashley? Just Ashley? All right, so we heard from Ashley. I'm going to do this one anyway because every single time we do this, there's like, well, it's not my job, but I know of somebody who is hiring. So raise your hand if you're looking for a job as a dev right now. A couple hands. All right, so I want to, real quick, like 3-sentence kind of thing, starting with Mike, going this way stand up, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Mike, I'm a assistant galvanized for Kyle. Mentioned I'm programming here in about a month and a half. I'm looking for a full stack job.
Boss, rock on. Who's next? Ben? Go for it.
My name is Ross, Turing student, about to start Module 4. So in about seven weeks, I'll be looking for a full stack job. So,
Boss, who's next?
anywhere.
Go for it.
My name is Jack.
Just finished the Turing, and yeah, we did a little bit in JavaScript and front-end frameworks, and took a particular interest in Ember. Yeah.
Boss, who else? Go for it.
I'm Adam. I have 6 years in developing and designing web solutions. My background is in graphic design, and I have working experience with JavaScript and some backend programming and work. So,
Boss, Shively.
So I'm Shibley, or David, also. I'm also a full stack student at Galvanize, one of Cal's students, and graduating in about a month and a half, or a little bit over that, and I'll be looking forward to full stack.
Boss, who else? Yeah, hit it.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I recently graduated from Galvanize's full stack program. You learned the main stack.
Golden Triangle?
Yeah, GT.
Nice.
No, not your class, unfortunately.
No, you're lucky. You got Mike Herman.
But yeah, looking for work. So that's me.
Mike Herman runs the Node meetup. You guys have to slum it with me. Who else?
That's great.
I'd rather be with you than Mike. I mean that.
Tom Luskin.
I'm Tom. I graduated from Turing in August, but I work at a consultancy in Boulder called Dragon Dev. I also do some contract work in Rails in the background, but I'm looking for a new full-time position.
Boss. Who else? Jess?
I'm Jess. I graduated in June from Galvanized Full Stacks. I jumped on the bandwagon. I just had to leave my previous position where we focused with Mithril, CoffeeScript, and Node. And my background was in Rails and JavaScript, a little bit of Ember, whenever I was in Galvanized. So.
Boss. Who else? Anybody else looking? Going once, going twice? Rock on. Cool. So, party time. Let's talk about Ember apps a little bit. Oh, you suck. They're just so great. So, getting started with Ember. So if you're super fresh to Ember, we're going to go over some core concepts, theory kind of stuff, and then we're going to make an app. And ooh, wow, is that not going to go well? But what is Ember? A framework for making ambitious web applications is the tagline on the framework. More productive out of the box is another thing that we say. These two things to me basically say that it's not for small apps. Doing something kind of simple, it's a little fat for that. Should probably do it in React. More productive out of the box really means convention over configuration, which if you're not familiar with that means that rather than setting every little thing up individually, a lot of stuff happens automagically. Depending on who you ask, that is a boon or a curse. But when you go like, well, I don't know, when I was just doing this in my raw JavaScript stuff, I was able to trace the signal flow, and now I don't really know what any of this is. More productive out of the box means once you know the conventions of Ember, you don't have to wire those things up every single time like you would if you were making a vanilla app.
So it's kind of opinionated then?
Super opinionated. Like, so if we have pure vanilla over here, Ember is all the way over here. May as well be another language. However, it takes advantage of a lot of JavaScript best practices. And so if you're familiar with good web app architecture practices and ES 2015 JavaScript kind of stuff, all of this should be somewhat familiar to you. Ember is an MVC framework, I guess. So my take on this is that the concept of model view controller is predates the web. It's It's like an old architecture pattern. And I have to say, if we were to come up with a term to describe like modern web app architecture, MVC is the last thing that we would come up with. Because, like, for example, modern Ember apps don't have views or controllers, as we'll talk about in a second. Routes are super important, templates are super important, but when you see the term MVC bandied about, that applies to Ember. So it's like Angular or like Mithril or like a lot of other things. And like in the sense that it solves similar kinds of problems. It is community driven. This is super important. So Angular is Google's project, right? React is Facebook's project. Ember is people's project. So what the big benefit to you from this is there is not a council at Google that is trying to figure out what they need out of Angular and drive it in that direction, which is exactly really what happened with Angular 2.0. You might have seen a lot of people are fucking furious about Angular 2.0, but not because it's bad. Actually, Angular 2.0 is badass. It looks a lot like fucking Ember, but it has like zero backwards compatibility. Like it's a new framework. It has nothing to do with Angular 1, and that would be impossible to happen in Ember for so many reasons. Our last 1x version, 1.13, I'm going to eat my shit on that. 113? 113, 113, if you can run 113 with zero deprecation warnings, just switch to 2. You're good. That's it. Follows semantic versioning, which means that you cannot do a major, you cannot add a feature that is backwards breaking compatible until a new version, but part of that is you get all these deprecation warnings coming up. They telegraph their punches super ahead of time and have guides on how to fix each deprecation warning. And like a very rich community that cares about you, I guess is the way that I would put that. When I think about like Angular devs and React devs, like anybody who's winning, the keynote at the end of EmberConf last year, like rattles around my brain constantly. Because like as we'll talk about in a second, we're the 3rd place framework. Angular's kicking the shit out of us. And then React is kind of sneaking up to eat their lunch also. We will never, ever, 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 I think, be number 1. And there's a lot of value in that, I think. You think about the concept of when you're number 1, you're the default. You're the default for default companies who hire default developers who go, well, just what's popular? What's winning right now? We'll go with that. Who knows what's winning? Hire them. And it's really hard to build a community around that. So you end up with something that's very fragmented, very cold, very distant. If you are an Ember dev, you walk past Angular, you walk past React, and went, that's for me. So everybody who is in the Ember community has at least that in common. And I think there is a ton of value in that. It's where I want to spend my time. It's not Angular. So, some core differences from Angular. Angular uses a concept called two-way binding. Ember uses a concept called one-way binding that we stole from React. React was just right. It was one of those things like, oh, fuck, that's such a better way to do this. And so now we do it also. Angular, model, it's such a big thing, there's no way that they could have made such a big change like that. We did. Angular, React was right. Angular, by comparison, super unopinionated. It's like when someone goes, I'm an Angular dev. Like, so you use like an ng repeat. Like, that's an Angular app. Like, it's all you have to do. Yeah, I made an app with a controller once. Like, and that's why no 2 Angular apps look even remotely the same. Like, not the case with Ember. also not React. So, huge difference between Ember and React. React is like this much of making an app. It's a view. It's a little presentation component framework, which some people say is a benefit, right? It's like use the Unix philosophy, like one thing is super, super good. Fired. By contrast, Ember does your scaffolding, generation, testing, your application architecture, as an add-on ecosystem, deployment, like everything kind of all together in a way that like not even React and Reflux or like any of the actual application frameworks around React really do. So why use Ember? Super fast development. So convention over configuration typically means you're able to get a shit ton of work done in a really small period of time because you just follow the conventions. A big part of that is no bike shedding. Who knows what bike shedding is? Shibley, hit me with bike shedding.
I fucking experienced bike shedding. You're a newbie. Deal with that. Oh, he's a really good teacher. Bike shedding is when, like, everybody, like, let's say that you're trying to build a building, right? Like, you're like, we're building our new corporate headquarters, yeah! And you're like, build a building, and like, you're in a room with a bunch of people that are debating about what fucking color the bike shed is. Like, oh, it should be blue, no, it should be green. Who the fuck cares? Let's build out the building.
Okay, so that's bike shedding. How do we see that in development? When does that happen in development? Like, this is war stories. Who's got your best bike shedding examples? Shibley again.
I'll give mine.
Yeah.
So my bike shedding example was, we had 4 days to build out this entire application. Like, it was really tough what we were trying to do in general. And they are diving into things like whether or not, like, they're diving into the details of what, like, future theoretical possible features could be for the application, totally away from, like, this, like, minimal viable product that we're trying to get out in 4 days. And they're sitting here spending an hour on whether or not we should put the logic on the back end, or should we put it on the client side? Who the fuck cares? We're never going to get to that.
Who's got other bike shedding stories? Oh, really? Everybody is that new at this? Nobody has any good bike shedding stories?
In that case, I regret speaking.
That's the worst bike shedding story anyone's ever heard. Nobody can top that. Holy crap, tough crowd, man. All right.
The original bike shedding, like, they were actually...
That's a real story.
They were designing nuclear reactors,
yes.
Right? And they were wasting all their time. I mean, that's a real thing. So
exactly.
You can't beat the original bike shedding story.
You really can't. And like, so the idea here is that things like whether you use semicolons, tabs versus spaces, these are easy things to have opinions about, which makes them easy things to argue about. But they ultimately don't matter. And so having a lot of your architecture decisions made for you means that you don't go, wow, that was about the logic here. Nope, this is the way that you have to do it. So you have to argue about the difficult discussions, things that actually matter, your application concerns. Rich ecosystem. So Ember has a really cool ecosystem of add-ons, plugins, support kind of stuff. A lot of, like, that doesn't come from Google, doesn't come from Facebook. You're not waiting for somebody to make it for you. People just make these things, and they get so popular that everybody just starts using them. Ember CLI was one of those things. And we'll talk a little bit more about Ember CLI in a second, but that was just a tool. Someone was like, I don't need CLI tooling around this. And they made it, and everybody uses it. Ember Inspector was another one of those things where, like, this is a Chrome inspector tool that will help you debug your applications. Somebody said, this should exist, and so now it does. If you want to have SAS in your application, you're one command line argument away from having SAS in your application. An Ember app is an Ember app is an Ember app. This is really a big benefit to developers and companies. So I mentioned earlier that no two Angular apps look alike. Every Ember app looks the same. So your first day, you can start being productive. Well, Ember apps are probably a lot more rare than Angular. Well, Ember devs are probably a lot more rare than Angular devs. On the other hand, it's a lot easier to scale your team with more people because they don't need to learn the way that you do Angular. They just need to learn Ember. Best practices are baked in. So this is kind of related to bike shedding because some of the bike shedding stuff, the arguments people get into are like, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. If you try doing bad ideas in Ember, like the framework will fight against you every step of the way. And like you can even kind of use that as a smell detector. Like every time you find it's like, why won't the framework let me do this? It's probably because it's a terrible idea and you shouldn't be doing it that way. To quote Blade, some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill.
So I guess on that note,
Yeah.
Ember would be a good framework for like newish JavaScript programmers.
Yes, I think so. Okay, so there's two schools of thought on that. That's such a wonderful point. The difficulty in that is that you need to know a lot of architecture concepts to even get started, really. Compared to something like Angular, where like you just take what you already know and you can kind of slowly build on that. Like nobody has ever claimed that Ember doesn't have a very steep learning curve. However, if you do climb the mountain and you do get competent in Ember, you can go to any framework and you will make better Angular apps, you'll make better React Flux apps, you'll make better everything apps, because a lot of these best practices will just kind of be burned into your soul, I think. Oh, and yeah, the last one, it's a lot of fun, and that should count, right? Like this is your life. You spend a lot of time doing this. I think it's a lot of fun to make Angular apps. I don't think it's a lot of fun to make Java Swing apps. So this is how I want to spend my time, my development time at least. Okay, some key Ember concepts. Ember CLI. This is probably one of, like, I started with this because this is one of the most, like, holy shit moments for, like, intermediate developers. When they come in, they're like, I'm going to use a command line? What is this, the 70s? Where's the GUI? Like, use it, motherfucker. Like, just do it. Believe me. It solves so many problems and will make you a better developer in like a lot of other ways, much like the scaffolding, etc. Well, the assumptions that it makes, it assumes you know promises, modules, and ES 2015. Yeah, Mike. What's that?
What specifically is
Syntax. So like, don't worry if you aren't like super familiar with generators, but like, don't let and const like spin your hat around. Or things like a lot of examples you'll see online will use things like the new function syntax, where you like the function name and then the parentheses colon. Like you'll just run it across enough of those things that you should have some familiarity with the most common parts of ES 2015. And something that, this was like my biggest like, was the modules thing. The first time I saw like an Ember CLI app. It uses require. So it's just, you need to like not freak out with import and export, module to export statements. But if you're comfortable with all of that, Ember CLI does a lot of magic for you. This is the heart of your app development. You spend most of your development life living and dying by Ember CLI kind of stuff. There's your scaffolding. What's scaffolding? Mike.
structure of the app?
Structure of the app, folders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
When you say modules,
It's not Node, same kind of idea. It looks exactly the same. So yeah, structure of the app, this is their folder structure, boilerplate, which is like placeholder files, all that kind of stuff. That's your scaffolding. Generation, related to that. So rather than making a new file and worrying about putting it in the right place, they go, give me a new controller called this, and CLI figures out where to put it. Dev server. So like, think like NodeMon, but it has all the trimmings on it. It's got auto refresh set up on your browser, all the goodness, ready to go. Plus like badass logging, all this sort of stuff. Deployment. So if you want to push to different places, you want to have different live versions. So our very own Ben Limmer works on a tool called Ember CLI Deploy, which will let you do things like have multiple live versions that you can kind of pass a key to your URL and actually see your newest version in production with your production stack while still kind of obfuscating it from the public. Testing. So testing is baked into Ember CLI. And when you use generators, your generation stuff, it will automatically generate tests for you. Updating. So like when you have to update your app, there's workflows around that, and then the add-on ecosystem, just like Node, Bower, any of that kind of stuff. Ember-specific stuff, we have our own ecosystem around all of that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The generator, if you point it at your database, it's automatically do scaffolding for your database as well.
Good question. No. What you can have, because since this is a front-end framework, it doesn't directly integrate with the database. What you can do is set up HTTP mocks, or whatever style interface your backend has, it will let you mock those up on the development side. So you don't have to actually make requests. You can if you want to. But there's one baked in called HTTP mock that I really like. There's one called Barrage that every single other Ember developer likes a lot more. But it will let you talk to a fake backend. Any other questions about that? Sweet. So a few more things. Ember object model. So Ember puts a lot of sugar on top of objects. It uses getters and setters for everything. That is currently a requirement for the other things that it does in its objects. These are probably going to go away sometime, not anytime soon. So when you see .get and .set on things, it's just like your equals assignment kind of stuff, but it has a lot of other benefits to it and has a long-ass history. You get extra array methods. So when you look in the API docs for Ember and you look up a thing called enumerable, enumerable is it gives you things like for each. I can't remember if they got added in ES 2015 or not, but tons of extra like super useful utility array methods like .first, that kind of thing, that you don't have in plain JavaScript. And when you write too much Ember, you forget that those aren't regular JavaScript things. You go, shit, I forgot I have to do this all by hand now. Mix-ins. So mix-ins are your the idea of like composing something. I want it to have this functionality and this functionality and this functionality. I want to compose something rather than inherit down from it. You have built-in facilities for that. Also have built-in inheritance. So you can do like a .extend if like you're from a Stackly type background or like Java or something like that. Should be pretty familiar. Computing properties. Computer properties are things that mash up other properties or change in response to another property changing. Built-in syntax for that. Observers. This is similar to computer properties, but think about like a method that you can fire whenever one of your properties changes. And then aliasing. So aliasing might be like on another object. You can. This would be like a binding kind of thing. You could bind to something on another object that will update whenever that updates. That's baked into every Ember object. Controllers, models, all of it. If it's an Ember object, it's kind of got all this stuff baked in. Routing. Routing is like kind of at the core. Like it treats it very differently than every other framework that I'm aware of. It uses the URL as the engine of state. I'm sure like I'm saying that wrong, so I'm just going to shit down my mouth about it. But whatever state your application is currently in should be identifiable by the URL. You're in that URL, you should be able to come back into the same state. So what the router does, like Ember routing, it's like the first thing that they got super right, and every other framework has been trying to like kind of catch up how good Ember does this. It matches a pattern in a URL and goes, oh, that goes with this object. And then it fires up that router object and lets it kind of take it from there. That object will do your data access. It will set that data on a controller. It will render a template. And then any actions that come up from that controller will end up getting handled by that route also. It's kind of the responsibilities of that route object. And we'll look at one in a sec when we actually take an app. These templates are super simple. Use handlebar syntax. So should be pretty familiar. It also has a ton of extra stuff on top of, like, if you've used handlebars for like server rendered Express apps, any of that sort of shit, if you've done it client side, it's all of that plus like 90% more cool shit that you can do. And then you can make your own helpers easily also. Controllers and views. So I think these are still important to know about today, at a minimum, because like if you took the code school course or something about that, they talked about it nonstop, and then you found out that like nobody uses controllers and views anymore. Like they are still kind of important to know about. In every modern Ember apps, like 2.0 and on, views are completely out. Controllers are deprecated in 2.0, but they still exist. Since it's an auto magic application, like all the controllers you need get made in the background. You never need to explicitly use one if you don't want to. But I think those two concepts are super key to understand for reasons we'll talk about in just a second. But what views used to do is they used to turn a primitive event into a semantic event. So what that means is like a primitive event is something like click or scroll or something like that. All of those events would bubble to the route, would bubble to the view. And the view's job was to go, okay, click means upvote. Whatever that event means for your application, the view's responsibility is to translate those things and then tell the controller. The controller is binding data to templates. So all your curly braces in your templates, it looks for all of that data on the controller, and then any explicit action that you set on a template or any semantic action that got sent from a view got sent to the controller and got handled there. So your function that would actually perform the upvote would end up being on your controller. All of that shit's handled by components now. So a component is a controller, a view, and a template. All those things together equals component. The reason they switched over to this, few reasons. One, I think, is that React got super popular and everything's a component in React. But the other one is that all the things that I just told you were super confusing to like everyone. It was making it unnecessarily hard to learn Ember because it's like, well, I know in the 80s we had this concept called MVC. And it's like this is such an arbitrary distinction on these things. So fuck it, they're all mashed up. All of the things that used to be methods on view, all the things that used to be methods on controller, it's all just mashed up in one object called a component now. Components are reusable and they are isolated. You'll hear components talked about a shit ton anytime somebody's talking about a modern Ember app. The way that you integrate a component from the rest of your application, and this is another thing that was stolen from React, you pass data into it. If the component needs to change some other state in the application, it passes an action out. And the application responds to that action, does whatever the fuck it needs to do, logs the user out, changes the color of the thing to red. And then once that thing gets changed to red, data gets passed into the component that says, hey, make it red now, whatever. But That's the idea. Services. Service is a controller without a template. That's literally what they used to be in Ember, and now we just have a different name for it. But if, like, it's funny, if you look up the API for service, it has like no methods on it other than controller. Like, it's just all the same stuff. But the reason what you use them for is application-wide state. Is the user logged in? Do we have admin privileges? That kind of stuff. And functionality like log in the method, something like that. And then you can inject these into components or controllers or whatever you want, but really components. So that's the idea of a service. Our data concerns, how we get data in and out of our Ember app. So those requests get made either in a service or in a route. Our models, and like I feel like this is an important thing to call out. This is baked into Ember CLI apps by default. However, this is 100% decoupled from, like, you just want to pass in like raw JavaScript objects. If you want to do AJAX requests out of your route, you don't have to use any of this shit. But it's there for you if you want to use it, and holy crap is it handy. So you can do your data model on the client side, and as you're making requests to the server, any kind of like object relational mapping that you might have needed to do on the server before, fuck it. If everything's got IDs and you've like really identified your data models well, Ember figures out what should nest inside of what and gives you all of those benefits. Plus, if you need to do computed properties there, first name plus last name equals full name or something like that, you can define that on your model. Adapters are responsible for handling whatever impedance matching that you need to do with your server. The URL is here. I use a wacky ass like URL format, so every model kind of has a different one. Like we don't use the put method, we use the patch method. All that kind of stuff gets handled in adapters, and then serializers go like, okay, break down this JSON response into this. This matches up with this property. That goes here. This goes here. All that kind of stuff. So if you follow some standard conventions, Ember data will just kind of invisibly do all this shit for you. If you have a goofy, if you have a SOAP backend, if you have all kinds of weird shit, you can customize this stuff as much as you need to, completely separate from your application. So visually, it looks like this. I type in /rentals. The router goes, all right, whenever you see /rentals, instantiate the rentals route object. Cool, that's this. And that lives here. Cool, whenever like this route gets entered into, by the way, this is that goofy ES 2015 syntax I was talking about. This is what's called a lifecycle function. So look up the model, which is located in the data store. Give me every rental that's in the data store. This is a promise that ends up setting that. They skipped it here, and they probably should. It sets that on the controller, kind of invisibly. It's looking all that data up, sets it on the controller, which is bound to this template, boring ass handlebar stuff. It's going to go for each array that came back from this model. Let's call each one of those rental unit, and then instantiate a component called rental tile, and set rental, the property on rental tile, to whatever's in rental unit as an unordered list. And then that's going to look up this rental tile component and just make a new one for each of that. That's Ember apps. That's how they work. Sweet. So before we do this, I've been jibber jabbering for a long ass fucking time. So let's take 5 minutes or so. Everybody go over here, go to the bathroom, all that kind of stuff. All right, rock on. We're way out of time. Ah, fuck that, man. Go right into it. Let's talk.
To separate the view, or whatever. I guess it's not a view, but how do you separate like A to B component and be reusable? Or do you just like this is
Sure. Look at the boundaries of what it needs, what actually needs to be covered. So if like you look at that kind of under the microscope and like look at like, for example, full name. That needs first name and last name. Those could be each their own component, I guess. They really belong together. You could encapsulate them together.
But at that point, you already make that. You make that component just to use the data.
So, look at those kinds of boundaries. This is art. So you get a sense for like where those clean boundaries are, and it takes some practice. You get it wrong a lot of times.
Well, it's like when you build an Angular apps.
How many
you have
controllers?
one line function and like just make that a controller, or is that just a one line function and add in all the other stuff?
That's the part.
Yeah. So it's not ready to necessarily.
Go well so far?
What's that?
Going well so far?
Yeah. I've tried a little bit of Ember before, so I think now that we have a little bit of background, good. I don't think Galvanize is going to provide any apps that really benefit from pure structure and pure product. I'm excited that.
Hey, Brett. I'm going to skip this.
Sure, I can always visit another time where I can just cruise it. Either way.
What do you
So, I mean, one of the good I think it's great. One of those things I have one slide what my backend is, Rails API, and for JSON API. It's going to show the JSON API on the readouts. And then it's literally just generating a route for explaining all the burritos. And we're using Proxy ready to we're having a route just like those three different functionalities. And then added the additional commit onto the app. They've added so I could skip this or you could present and I could just totally work. He's really good. Or I maybe it's cool. Likewise, there's a lot of I think we want to take a different data.
I'll do a little bit of that. Alright, folks, let's get it back together. How much battery do I have left? Alright, gang. Alright, so this is the last thing we'll do. Go through it kind of quick. We have to go through kind of quick because there's no more plugs over there, and I have half an hour of battery life left. So we'll kind of use that as the upper bound. Yeah, God, if there was a way to make live coding more stressful. Okay, so if we want to make a new Ember app with Ember CLI, we do Ember new, and I'll call this, I'll call the other one starting Ember. Why not? All right, it's going to install this crap through npm. A forewarning on this, I teach and do administration most of the day. I haven't written an Ember app in like 4 months, so this is not going to go well, as I said. I still know all the concepts, but they aren't under my fingers anymore. These used to be such good, strong hands. Okay, so you can see all the stuff that's adding here, and it gives you an idea of like all the stuff that you get for free. Your NPM setup, your Bower setup, your Travis setup, your JS hint file, all your tests, the helpers, all that kind of stuff. Just comes baked in. And there is a bug, by the way, if you have Ember CLI installed already. I trolled myself with this afternoon. It used to use like a fixed range of jQuery that's not available anymore. Just upgrade. Like that's it. It's kind of a silly bug, and like it will when you run your app for the first time, it'll be like, but if you look in the console log, it'll be like, that's an invalid version of jQuery. That's what's happening there. Okay, cool. So what I call this practice. Whoop. Yep.
Organize that as you see logical, or is there a particular way that you go about it?
Ooh, that is such a deep question.
They got opinions.
Yeah, they do. You have a little bit of flexibility in there, but like that's exactly like the kind of thing. I wouldn't even necessarily call that bike shedding, but that's right on the fence of like, just do it their way and you won't have any trouble, but it can be done other ways if you want to override that. Yep. Okay, and I call this starting Ember. Rock on. All right, sweet. So I just installed all that crap, and let's set up a server. So if I go Ember S or Ember serve. Oh, Jesus, I'm a jackass. I'm sorry. I do this like for money, so like I should really.
Okay.
A little bit better? All right. So, okay, cool. So if I go to localhost 4200, I see that. Hooray! That's my boilerplate. That's what Ember CLI set up for me. Now, if I look into this folder structure that it made for me, this is my root level. I have all these sweet-ass dot files. It set up a nice get ignore for me. It gave me a boilerplate README, all the stuff a girl needs. And in this app folder, these should be kind of familiar, right? So if I go into templates, look in there, wow, it looks kind of familiar. And if I change this to, jeez, can I turn off like overscan or something? Shit. Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts. How about this? Hey, that'll work. So if I change that to Denver Ember, I want you to like see my hand. Okay, so I'm gonna save. So W, I saved it, and then I'm going to tab over to that next thing. Hey, it's already there, right? Auto refreshes for you, so you don't have to like set up a plugin for that or anything. Oh crap! Stop! Okay, so I have everything wired up that I need to, and that's really kind of the key thing that I really dig about Ember. The stuff that doesn't matter is wired up. All I need to do is make my application. What I want to do to make my application is make a meetups route. One thing, I sometimes forget to do this, and this is like the easiest way to troll yourself, I think, with making an Ember app. If you go to this .ember CLI file, there's use pods. So this goes into that folder structure thing. This is such a better folder structure. It's going to be the default, I don't know, soon.
They're changing the structure.
Oh, they're for pods?
Yeah, so that'll work, but if you don't care, stay away from it.
I can't do it the old way. So like, but yeah, that little thing changes where your auto magic shit ends up getting inserted. All right, so when I go over here and go Ember generate route meetups. Pew, 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 pew. Made all those files for me. Added a route to the router. Let's take a look at that router quick, actually. Over in our app file, we have this router. This is the thing that does what? Just said it, Ben.
Links the URL to
Yes. And there it is. So it's going to take /meetups and match it to the meetups route object, because I'm using the conventions. And you go, hey, wait a minute, like I didn't see the logic that matched all that together. That's the convention over configuration aspect to this. So now I have this meetups folder, and it's got this route file in it, and it's got this template file in it. And if I put something in here that says like, check out our meetups, and save that, and then go over here and go to /meetups. Hey, there we go. Magic. Okay, so now let's do some Ember-y kind of stuff. We won't do a ton, but we can kind of work it backwards a little bit. So I'm going to put the controller in. It doesn't auto-generate it because, like I said, it's deprecated. You're not supposed to use them, but I think it'll illustrate what we're doing here a little bit better. So Ember generate controller meetups. So now if I say something like this using the handlebar syntax, it's not going to be there because first name, which like this template binds to the controller. You go over here and go first name is Kyle. Hey, magic! I have 15 minutes left. Holy shit, we gotta burn through this. It's going to look for that there. However, the other way that I could do this is if I go into this route object and set up the model and say return first name equals Kyle, and then blow that out of my controller. It won't work because I need to tell it to look for that on the model. Ta-da! So, cool thing to note about this is if I look on this, like this arbitrary object that I'm returning, model returns a promise. So this could be an AJAX function, this could be whatever, and it could be an object of kind of arbitrary complexity if we wanted to. So let's do that. 13 minutes left. Race against the clock. I'm going to make a new HTTP mock. So I'll say Ember G HTTP mock meetups. So the HTTP mock that it makes is basically just kind of a dummy Express app that it'll run for you. And then I need to make an adapter because this is a backend, so I got to talk to the backend somehow for the entire application. Oops. So I'm making a new adapter, and I'm going to go set that up. Makes this folder called server, mocks. If you've ever done an Express app before, this should look very familiar. So in our get everything route, I should be able to do something like one, and title is my best meetup ever. Another one called to title stop making me do these getter presentations.
You got an ID of one.
Oh. And, all right, so let's run with that. All right, so that's going to come back to my fake server. And now I need a model that matches up with that. So I go Ember G model. I always throw the pod flags on this because everything else in the application is plural, meetups, but I want to make the model meet up. And otherwise, it will make a meetups and a meetup folder, and it just drives me nuts. I think that's probably part of the thing that they're trying to get around. But so, all right, so now I have this new model. And this has a title that is a string. I made an adapter a second ago. By default, HTTP mock throws everything under /API. So now, if I did this right, should be able to go over here, and instead of this, I should be able to do something like return this dot store dot find all meetup, and when I go over to this template, and do something like each model, standard like handlebars, looping kind of stuff. Watch, this isn't going to work at all. Control myself. Ooh. As, yep. Should be able to do meetup, what do I call it, title? I need to do that. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. It's coming. There it is. Hey! All my meetups are there. And so if I go back and add something to my fake server, say I do another one. Hey, it all kind of automatically shows up. And should I get a hair up my buns to do SAS, I do Ember install this add-on called Ember CLI SAS. Oops. Ember install Ember CLI SAS.
What's the deal with Watchmen?
I don't have it installed, and so it does the fallback. So the it prefers to use Watchmen, but if you don't have it installed, it has other ways of doing that. Okay, so I installed SAS. If I look at it installed a style for me called app.css. If I change that to app styles app CSS to app styles app.scss, and then go over here and do something wacky, something crazy, like body all P's. Oh shit! Coming down to it. So some nested-y kind of thing that says background color red. Oh! So in my amazing Meetups app here, hopefully you've gotten some idea of the what an Ember app looks like, how we structure them, that kind of stuff. So before this totally dies, questions? Hit me. What do you want to know?
Yeah, I kind of have one completely new to this, to Ember. You were saying what's getting in terms of like templates and controllers, you were saying that a bunch of it is out in Ember 2.
Yes, correct.
So what's with the project structure that still has all the folders for those things? How is that when you go in and still have templates and a controllers folder that's being generated?
Oh, sure. Easy migration path. So like if I wanted to, with whatever time I have left, I'll show you this.
4 minutes.
So over here in this Meetups folder where I have this controller and the route and the template, in the new structure what I'd have is a component. And the component would have all the stuff from my from my business logic from the controller. And so what I actually just have in my template at that point is I would I'd blow all of this out and just call, well, that's not a legal name. I do something like that and say, like, it's such a dumb shim until 3.0 until they can rip out controllers. But like all of your auto-generated templates essentially just become ways to call the actual component that you really want to put the logic in. And so if you're migrating an application, you just take whatever you have in the controller and you put it in the component for meetups and whatever.
There's not a workaround for creating parameters yet, though, right?
No.
No. Still have to use that controller.
Right. More questions? Hit me. Really? No, nobody has any questions. Beginner's night, lots of beginners here. Nobody wants to know anything else about Ember. I explained it all. I'm flawless. Invent a question.
Can I make sure I understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you have, do various components really interact, or can they interact with each other in that kind of upflow that you were saying before? They really manipulate one another, or is it very separate?
Super good question. Like in a super bleeding edge way, kinda. There's a new feature that will allow components to share state. Don't worry about that at all. If you can get the God, this is just making me nervous at this point. If you can get what we call